think I went crazy. I had this idea that has taken a hold of me. Mentally, my brain shifted from thinking about like 5 different things that I need to do, like all the different projects that I wanted to do. I saw this and I went, no, I have to make that right now. Hi, I've done this so many times. Hi, I'm Yssa. I'm the artist behind Isekai. It is my small business making stationery, crochet, and other goods with a focus on handmade and DIY. At least, that's how it's starting. We'll see how it goes. I really want to focus on crochet and stationery, and so that's where I'm gonna start. It's so I don't even have an intro video for myself for this particular like channel or whatever I want to do, because I just thought like if I don't make it now, I am never going to make this. Timing is now. My partner and I, we watched the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth State of Play video, and I saw something briefly and I think I kind of went nuts. Iconic, breathtaking, lovely. And I see this. Who is he? What is he doing here? I need him. And so we're gonna crochet it. I have this pattern up for sale in my store and also on Ravelry. It is absolutely not necessary to buy because this video already has written instructions, but I want to mention I include a lot more specific photos and additional information in this digital document. Check out the links in the description. I think this is considered an advanced beginner or intermediate pattern. I used a 3.5mm hook for medium weight yarn. Honestly, I could have used a 3.25 or 3mm for less obvious holes. I just couldn't find my crochet hooks at the time. Colors, you'll need yellow, orange, and black. Polyester fill, needle, scissors, and stitch markers of your choice. And here's what you need to know to follow the pattern. 2 amigurumi common tips listed here are to yarn under instead of yarn over for single crochets, and use the invisible decrease technique for decreasing stitches. And here's the instructions for making the head. Feel free to screenshot this. We'll continue the video and get right into making it. Okay, we're gonna start with our magic ring. I like to wrap the yarn twice around my finger and then start single crocheting into it. When I'm done, I tighten to close, and then I like to slip stitch into my first stitch to close the circle. Afterward, we're not going to be slip stitching to the beginning of the round, we're just going to keep crocheting. And now I'm pretty impatient, so we're gonna speed the video up generously. Hi, I'm back again. We're finally finishing with the head and sewing the hole closed. Notice that I wanted a really flat bottom, so the decreases on the last few rows are pretty dramatic, but that does mean that we might get some bigger holes on this bottom side. There's probably a better way to do it other than what I'm about to do right now, but essentially I just weave my long tail through all of these different holes just to cover them up. I think they're not very aesthetic, honestly. It's not my favorite thing to do, but if you guys know a better way to do this other than just crocheting better, because I'm sure that's an actual technique, please feel free to leave a comment. And now we can finally move on to making the rest of the Chocobo balloon, which shouldn't take as long. I'm gonna speed this up so fast. And now we'll do the beak. You know, I've been wondering whether or not you guys enjoy seeing the step-by-step or row-by-row process, especially these small pieces for something like this Chocobo balloon. Right now I'm just gonna speed through everything, and I'm hoping that the mid-card instructions will do you some justice. Let me know what you think, and I'll try to incorporate it for the next time I do one of these crochet alongs. I'm going to be stuffing the beak very lightly at the end of this when we start to assemble all the pieces. Here's an alternative to the magic ring, especially if you're only single crocheting 3 for the first row. I find it's a lot less annoying to just chain 2. single crochet into that first chain, basically 3 times. Slip stitch into that first single crochet you made, and you've got a ring. I don't think you need to do a magic ring all the time, and this is much easier to do when you have chunky yarn, and sometimes your yarn can fall apart if you pull at it too much. For pieces like these, I think using an alternative to a magic ring is going to help you in the long run and make you less annoyed at doing small things like these. And as we finish our first side feather, I'm going to magically make another one off screen, and then we have our 3 head feathers. I'm gonna suggest a different start for the wings this time around. This technique is similar to whenever you start making crochet squares or granny squares. So I'm going to make my slip knot first. I'll chain 1, 2, and 3. Gonna slip stitch into that first chain to close my square off. Gonna lock that in with another chain just in case. Then I'm gonna put my crochet hook through the center of that, and that'll be my beginning ring. I used 3 chains to make it a pretty tight circle, and then I will start with my 5 single crochets, and that is my beginning row. So here's where we're going to start to close our wing. I'm going to sandwich the wing closed. And I'm going to use my needle here to show you which stitches I'm going to crochet through. So I'm crocheting these stitches together to make this flat. This is because I don't want to sew these flat. I would rather crochet them flat at this rate. So that's going to be our first one we're crocheting through. This is going to be our second, then our third. That's where a third stitch will go. 4, 5, and then 6. You can do it, Yssa. Pull through. Yeah, you got it. Alright, cool. I am pointedly ignoring these 2 end stitches. We're going to skip them. We're not going to count them while we crochet our wing flat together. So we're going to cluster with a double and then a triple. I'm going to start off like a regular double crochet. Going to yarn over, pull that hook through, yarn over again, pull through 2 loops, leave those 2 loops on the crochet hook. We're not going to finish that stitch off. We're going to continue to do a triple into the same stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops again, and then when you have the 3 loops on your hook, that's when you pull over. We're going to continue into the next stitch with a triple crochet. Personally, for the edge of a feather, I liked the look of a cluster as opposed to doing 2 separate stitches and finishing them off. That's just my preference though, really. This next stitch, I decide not to do a cluster instead. I'm going to do a triple and finish that off, but in the same stitch, I'm going to do another double. And then I will slip stitch into that same stitch to get that first feather-like appearance. Then we'll finish off the rest of the wing. We'll do a double crochet first, then a half double crochet, and then our last one is just a slip stitch into that last stitch. For 2 nice curves, nice mountains, one bigger than the other. And that is the end of our left wing. For the purposes of assembly, I'm going to go ahead and just mark this with a stitch marker to know this is my left wing. So here for our wing right, the first 2 rows are essentially the same thing as our wing left. Every other row, on the other hand, is actually mirrored to what is happening with the left wing. I decided to do this because I wanted the wing, when sewed, to always look like there is a front and a back, and it's because whenever we're crocheting flat, especially as the wing is crocheted flat in the end, it always seems like it looks like there's a back side and a front side to crochet. So I just wanted to cover my bases, make sure that the wings did actually look mirrored, and that's about it really. It's just a preference of mine. And now we just have to put it together and do some embroidering. Here are the rows where I put the beak, the top of the beak and the bottom of the beak, and where I wanted to put the wings. Because we're sticking to the Chocobo Balloon design, I'm gonna sew the wings out like the design, but I think it'd be really cute if you could also sew the wings to the body. Just as another suggestion, a hot tip for sewing the head feathers is make sure you're sewing to the corner of the center feather instead of sewing next to it. That way you're gonna get that angle, that really cute angle where those side feathers kind of jut out from the corner, and you're not gonna get all of these feathers sticking straight up. I've left my stitch marker here to mark the top of my beak where I'll attach it together. The long tail of my beak where I sew in will start at the side. I'm going to continue to use these stitch markers as pins to ensure that I am sewing the beak to the places that I want it. I'm going to be counting from this row, 1, 2, 3. 3 rows below is where I will leave my marker for the bottom of the beak. This means the beak is not a perfect cone shape, but flattens out just a little. To clarify some instructions, I leave the assembly top of beak rows a little vague. I say 14 to 15-ish. Theoretically, we actually want the top of the beak to start where those increases start, where we start to see the curve of the cheeks start to puff out. So technically it's row 15. It does depend on how much I think you end up stuffing your head and where you want the beak to be placed. Really, these are kind of guidelines that I'm following for myself to make sure that all of these look similar. This part's probably really optional. I just wanted to make sure that the beak keeps its shape, so I am lightly stuffing it. I'm not going too crazy on the filling here. And now that we're finished with the beak, we can move on to sewing those head feathers. Gonna get that center feather right on top of the ring. And here is where that tip before comes into play. With the side feathers, I'm going to aim to sew my tail right where that center feather ends. Now we're pretty close to finishing off our head feathers. When I finish off the tails, I do like to sew into the head a few times through different ways, so that way the thread does get tangled in with the polyfill. Just gonna finish off this knot, cut them off, and hide the knot by stuffing it inside. Quick aside about the wing, I sewed the long tail end through the wing and out through the beginning ring that we started off with. We're going to use this as an anchor for when we sew into the head. Starting from the beak, we're going to count 10 stitches away. And starting with our left wing, we'll insert the needle into that 10th stitch. And already we can start to see the shape that the wing is going to take. Remember that the larger feathers, the larger quote-unquote mountain curve of the feathers, are going to be in the front. So I'm just going to continue sewing these in. And since I want the wings to stick out to the side, I'm going to keep sewing through the edge of the wing. I'm not going to sew through the entire edge of the wing, just probably 3 or 4 rows, I want to say. I'm guessing, really. Or a lot of what I do at this point is based on feel. If I think it looks like it's hanging up, I'm going to leave it alone, but if I feel like it's sagging a little, I'm going to sew in just another stitch and see how that looks after. And so I'm pretty happy with how the left wing is turning out. Gonna sew in my ends. I'm gonna start with the right wing. Once again, counting from the bottom of the beak 10, and then I will insert my needle in. This is an instance, I want to say this entire video is just a case of please do as I say, not as I do. There are a few instances where I started questioning myself a lot. It's my first video, so just kind of having a hard time. Almost there. Now we get to handle the facial features. Sew it through the head a few times before I get to my first point here. Something to note, of course, is the inside corner of the eye starts pretty much at the top of the beak, so that's where I'm going to start my first stitch. To get the eye design, I found out that the most consistent way to get that slanted, closed, happy eye design is to count 3 to 3.5 stitches across, go 1 row up, and insert your needle there. And then we're going to continue the fly stitch by just going across 2 more stitches and pulling out from underneath. If you're using medium-sized yarn, I suggest doing the 3 to 3.5 stitches. If you're using the chunky yarn, go ahead and do 4 stitches across and then 1 row up. When we finish our final fly stitch, it's easy to see now that that last stitch for the eye helps uplift it so it looks like a happy eye. Here's an optional thing, add blush. If you have any pink or red or anything that's really cute, I think adding blush to your plushies just really gives it that extra cute factor. I finished! Wait, I think I missed a few single crochet rows. So he's not perfect, but he is very sweet still. So when you finish one in this medium weight 4 yarn, it's going to come out to be about, I think, 4 to 5 inches height, width, and depth. I think you're looking more at like 4.5 on some aspects. You can add to this if you really want. I was thinking I would sew in an elastic band and just make this like a purse friend, or a bag friend, if you will. Maybe you can add a little keychain on it as well. I think these kinds of things are really cute to have as an accessory if you really want one, but also if you just want to keep them inside, safe and warm from the elements, perfectly fine. What I really wanted to do is make a big boy. So this one, the yarn that I used was Premier Parfait's. The Beak is a Bernat blanket. The crochet hook that I used was 6mm on this one. Editing Yssa says 5.5mm is actually better. Came out to be a really hefty, like 6.5 to 7 inches height, width, depth. Just the head only, really. This guy is really what I wanted to make. Really good to kind of have and just cuddle with, a good pillow, if you will. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys found the video informative. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I've been crocheting for, I think at this point, 2 to 3 years. I'm still learning as I go, especially pattern making is a new thing for me. I've wanted to make my own patterns for a while because what I really want to do is just make a lot more like video game and anime related things. I think that'd be really cool to have. If there's any tips or tricks that you want to share, some things that you think would be really useful to know when it comes to pattern making or crocheting, leave it in the comments. I'm not gonna tell you to subscribe, but I am gonna keep making videos, but I'm trying to do the self-employed thing. Thanks again for watching. See you guys later. Gwah! If you're still here, wow, thank you so much for sticking around for the entire hour. What a first video, am I right? Hopefully I get better at this as I go. Remember to check out the digital pattern link in the description, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely day.